welcome to the Oxygenaddict Triathlon Podcast. We're brought to you every week by our sponsors, precisionhydration.com.
Leaders in triathlete sweat testing and hydration with multi-strength electrolytes that match how you sweat. You can get 15% off with the code Oxygenaddict15.
And also by our sponsors, Team Oxygen Addict at team.oxygenaddict.com.
Which offers event-specific training plans, coaching guidance from Coach Rob Wilby.
Hello.
Hello, and supportive teammates in a private Facebook group. Hello.
Hello, and welcome to the show, everybody. It is the week of the 21st of August 2017 as we're recording today, and there's been all kinds of exciting racing happening around the world, hasn't there, this weekend, Hells?
There has, because the last cut-off has taken place, Rob, for Kona. So we will chat about that shortly. And also this week, we have an interview for you with Jasmijn Muller, who you might know from the Zwift record attempt earlier this year. Basically, very, very, very ultra long distance cyclist. And she's going to be aiming for the Land's End to John O'Groats record and also the 1,000 mile record. So a fascinating insight into the life of an endurance cyclist. And we'll have Coach's Couch and loads of other stuff in between, won't we?
We sure will. And the most endurance of endurance athletes, I think it's fair to say, with Jasmijn, isn't it? Just give me the headline figure again. How long was it that she was on a turbo trainer for, riding in front of Zwift?
Oh, I'm pretty sure it was 60
something hours.
Yeah. I should go and there's a piece of paper at about 2 meters away from me, Rob, which
is that? Let me do the maths. You get your piece of paper.
I will get my piece of paper.
24, 48, 50, 60. So it's at least 2.5 days solidly cycling on Zwift. Now, I've been on Zwift for a couple of hours, but I've not been on it for 2.5 hours, Hells. It sounds like a long time to me.
Well, I don't really know how. I don't. I think the longest I've been on my turbo is maybe, I think a couple of years ago. I'm pretty sure I was on it for like 3 or 4 hours, and I nearly
long
went.
Enough, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, properly. So,
60
yeah, she
hours,
talks.
2.5 straight days.
Yeah, 62 hours.
Yowza.
Yeah, because the guy who had it before had done 1,600 kilometers in 60 hours, and Jasmijn went and did 1,828 kilometers in 62 hours.
Unreal.
Well,
looking forward to hearing that interview later on in the show then.
Yeah, it should keep you entertained, I think. We even talk about eggs.
I bet you do.
Everyone loves a bit of egg chat. Come on.
Sure do, mate. Right, listen, let's do our results. And let's talk about, first up, the Kona cutoff weekend has just happened. So for people who don't know and understand what happens here, Hells, give us the greatest hits of the point system and how it works, and the cutoff now and the cutoff later in the year and all of that.
Okay, so back in July, there was the initial cutoff. And that's for the KPR, which is the point system that pro athletes, try to. They're chasing points all year round in a bid to get to Kona. So as of a couple of days ago, before this second cutoff, there were going to be 10 more male slots to be decided and 7 more female slots, so in addition to those July slots. So there were a few people going into races this weekend who still needed to get a few more points to confirm their spot on the start line in Hawaii in October, whereas there were other people who were not racing, but whether they were to start depended on how some of these other athletes did. So for example, let's give a shout out, Rob, to Nikki Bartlett, she finished getting her maximum amount of points that she could do from all of her races. I want to say now like 4 or 5 weeks ago. So then for her, it's been a matter of just a waiting game. So she was very much on the edge, and it would have depended how athletes got on in Copenhagen and in Mont-Tremblant as to whether she would make that cutoff. And massive congratulations to Nikki, because she did. She had got enough points, so she made August cutoff, which is great because for those of you who perhaps haven't been listening from the very start, Nikki was our first ever interviewee, and she had just gone from an age grouper into the professional ranks, hadn't she? Or was about to that winter.
She was about to make the jump, yeah. So to make it to Kona as a pro, well done, decision validated. What a great result for her. That's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, really, really good. And Nikki actually has written a piece on her Facebook page about the process of qualifying for Kona, especially as a fairly newbie pro, and that, the crazy task, I guess, that is ahead to try to get on that start line and get enough points and also arrive there feeling fit and ready to race and not over raced. So it's a real fine balance, isn't it?
It sure is. So Rachel Joyce made the jump this time. She's in as well.
Yeah. So that's amazing, Rob, because if you think back, this time last year, she hadn't even given birth to her son. That happened in September. So Archie will be one, won't he, in September. And Rachel has raced, I want to say, she's definitely done 3 Ironman in the space of 10 weeks in order to get enough points to get to Kona. She didn't have a good race, did she, at Ironman Whistler? So then thought, right, I've got to go for it. I've got to go to Mont Tremblant and try and get those last few points that she needed. And not only did she get them, Rob, but she blinking well won the race.
She won it. So that's wins for her this year, both there and don't tell me she won Boulder, didn't she?
Correct.
Great. Brilliant. So good to see Joycey. And do you know what? It would be worth people going back and listening to that interview you did with her at the start of the year, because she really was talking about, I have to start from scratch. I've given up all thoughts of how fast a swimmer I used to be. I'm just trying to improve a little bit week by week. And to see her go from that phase over 6 months to qualifying for Kona as a pro again, I think is fantastic.
Exactly, because this year for her, she had to start from scratch because, with the KPR, they wouldn't take sort of maternity leave, so to speak, into account at all. So, she has done, incredibly well. And you just hope that she's now got enough left in the tank to pull it out on race day as well. But what an achievement! Because in that interview, Rob, she ruled out Kona. She said, "I'm not aiming for it." Initially, her aim was for the 70.3 Worlds.
Yeah.
And so wow.
So anything can happen from this point on, and I think it's a smart move for her as well, because being a strong swim biker, she could be up at the front of the race, even if maybe first year back she doesn't end up figuring in the podium at the end of the day. She could be all over the TV coverage for a long time, and it'd be really worthwhile for her and the sponsors, wouldn't it, rather than not racing at all. So I think it's a great thing for her to have done. Well done, Joycey.
Yep, so the females who have got those slots are going to be Rachel Joyce, Jasmijn Muller, Jocelyn McCauley, who had a great win, didn't she, down in the Southern Hemisphere earlier this year, Tina Holst, Hayley Chura, Nikki Bartlett, and Jean Collonge. And then I think Eva Vuti, because Meredith Kessler will not get that. She's pregnant, so I doubt she'll be racing. The male, Rob, Mariner van Honecker has now got enough points, and we can chat more about that shortly. Michael Weiss, Harry Wiltshire, Cameron Worth, Marcus Vachbach, Giulio Molinari, Denis Chevreau, Michael Fox, Kaito Tahora, and Carlos Lopez Diaz.
Nice, well done, Wiltshire. Harry Wiltshire getting in there again, which is good to see.
He had a torrid time of it again, though, didn't he?
Yeah,
he jokes, doesn't he, about how not to qualify.
Yeah, he's been around the world again. And it'll be interesting. We'll talk a bit later on about Marino, whether he'll go to Kona again, because he's had some amazing performances in Austria, and then he's never managed to have the race that he wanted in Kona because of the heat. And he quite famously said, didn't he, I'm never going back here, on several occasions, because he had so many races where he was off the front and he was leading, and he had some proper meltdowns on the run, didn't he, with head in the ice bucket. And but quality athlete, love Marino.
Oh yeah. So it's great to see him do the business, Rob, in Mont Tremblant.
Yeah, well, let's jump onto that then. So the results from Mont Tremblant over in Canada. Our results section sponsored as always by Precision Hydration. Now you guys can head over to precisionhydration.com and you can get yourself all kinds of different strength electrolytes. You've got tablets that you can carry on the run with you in the form of salt tabs. You've got different strength electrolytes that you can mix with your water bottles for both on the run and on the bike. And the crucial thing here is that you can take an online sweat test to get given an idea of, firstly, how heavy a sweat you are in terms of the volume of sweat you produce, and then also how salty your sweat is. Now, these two things combined can really tell you a lot about the nature of the athlete that you are, and they can really help you out, especially if you've struggled in the past in an Ironman or 70.3 event with feeling really sick and dizzy at the end of the event. A real good sign for you is if your kit is soaked and it's covered in white salt at the end of a ride on a hot day, the chances are that you're the kind of athlete who can be really helped out by the specialized help from Precision Hydration. So head on over to precisionhydration.com. You get a 15% discount off their products with the code Oxygenaddict15 at checkout. So they're sponsoring our results today. Let's head on over to Mont Tremblant. We'll start with the men's results because Van Hoenacker just took the race by the scruff of the neck on the bike, miles ahead of everybody else on the bike with a 4:25 bike split on what is an incredibly challenging course by all accounts. It's really up and down and rolling, and it's not a fast bike course at all. So that bike time on that course is, really quite eyebrow raising. We always knew he was a super biker, but to put it in perspective, I think he was 13 or 14 minutes in front of the nearest person. So like Chris McDonald was 13 minutes behind him on the bike, and then the next nearest person was another 8 minutes behind him. So it really was a massive margin of like leading off the bike,
Definitely. And then he did a nice nifty marathon as well.
Yeah, 2:56 to close out the day. And I'm also a big fan of Chris McDonald. If any of you guys haven't heard of him, you should go back and check out the old Endurance Corner interviews with him. They did a series over the years when he started out as an age grouper who worked and got to the point where he was pretty much a non-swimmer when he started. And I think he swam 78, 79 minutes in his first Ironman. So to get down to the point where he won various races and swam under 50 minutes in the swim. It's a great series of interviews that Gordo did with him. So well worth going back and checking out on the Endurance Corner website. I'm a really big fan of his because he works super hard. I've not heard much from him recently, so great to see him there in second. So Marino takes the win for the men in 8:21. Chris McDonald in second in 8:41. And then Jordan Monick of Canada in third in 8:51.
Great. And Rob, a massive shout out to Lauren Brandon of the USA, who was first out the water overall. So she outswam the men, even though she started 3 minutes back. So she had a 49-minute swim. She had a Zwift bike too, a 5:02, but couldn't match her her swimming bikes on her run. She did a 3:30, so finished fourth, but that is uber swimming. So Rachel Joyce took the win in 9:19 ahead of Kim Schwabenbauer in 9:21, also another mum, Rob, and Jenny Hansen of the USA third in 9:25. Cool stuff, and I've not been able to find the results yet for that race. I was telling you before the show went on, I had a couple of guys racing out there, and as we go to press, the Ironman website is resolutely refusing to show anything even resembling names and times on their athlete tracker. So hopefully that'll get sorted soon, eh? So next race over that was happening this year was the Dublin 70.3, one in Great Britain. In Ireland, even, Rob, maybe? Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah. Is it? Dublin's an island, yes. That's not in Great Britain, is it? No, Great Britain. No. Yeah, okay. All right. Pick on the thick, kid. I see how it is. It's kind of joined on. Don't go there. Sorry, residents of Ireland. Yeah. Dublin's very, very much in Ireland. I know I come out with a lot of dippy rubbishness sometimes, but that one's quite up there as well. So there you go. We're 1-1 there, Rob, on dippiness. Yeah, there we go. I'll be paying for that one on Twitter next week, won't I? Have at it, boys and girls. It's all right. I have come out with so much. You know what I mean? You can get there on the ferry really quickly. You can do as France as well, which, oh yeah, Britain, France, yeah, same thing. I'm going to stop talking now and let you tell us about the race. Me, Right, so over in Dublin, which is the capital of Ireland, David McNamee and Sarah Lewis got the wins over there. So it looked pretty chilly out there, Rob.
It always is, isn't it?
Oh, what a surprise, you know.
It was a chilly weekend over here, wasn't it?
Exactly. So it was going to be pretty chilly. So yeah, great stuff from David McNamee, who did a 1:11 run, Rob.
Amazing.
Yeah, amazing. Romain Guillaume, our friend who we chatted to on the streets of Bolton, where he had come off his bike, he was second in 3:48, and that'll be a nice little bit of fine-tuning ahead of Ironman Wales. I think we talked him into it, Rob.
Yeah, did he decide to go for it?
I'm pretty sure he signed up for it. Yeah,
I'm a big fan of his. He's a gutsy racer, really big fan, and a jolly little chap as well to go with it. It's a good combo.
Nice. And then Sean Donnelly was third in 3:56. Another good performance there from Elliot Smales, first out of the water, Rob, 3:59. He finished in fifth in the end. So Sarah Lewis got the win on the women's side. Solid race from Sarah. She did a 28-minute swim, 2:55 bike, and a 1:24 run. So that's nifty running, isn't it? Susie Cheetham was second in 4:26, and then Amanda Wilson third in 4:34.
I think the bike times have got the swim times included. I read somewhere. I think. Yeah, it's like 30 minutes of swimming, like a 2:25 bike or something. Yeah, but good run by Sarah Lewis, 1:24 to put 4 minutes into Susie Cheetham there. That's really good running, and yeah, nice victory for her. That'll give her a lot of confidence, eh?
Definitely. She's got another couple of races coming up, and then we're hopefully going to be chatting to her in sometime in September. That's the plan. Yeah, cool. So we'll hear all about it. We will, because she's had a bit of a you don't like me swearing, so I won't say that word. She had a bit of a difficult year, Rob.
Did she?
Yeah.
Well, bike crash to see her.
Bike crash and really horrible stuff. So yeah, awesome
to see her back on it.
Yep.
Now, what was it you were telling me about Kimberly Morrison this weekend?
Well, she went and did the Monster Olympic, Rob. Hashtag sorry boys, fun hit out today, running my way to the top. So basically, Rob, she took the overall win at a local triathlon. I love that. It's great, isn't it? Nice.
One for the ladies. Well done. I love that. Hashtag sorry boys.
Hasn't Lucy Gossage won one of those ball buster? Yeah, outright.
Yeah.
It must be quite a nice feeling.
That course has been designed for Lucy Gossage. Man, imagine having to try and race her on that course. No, thank you. Like 3 miles of downhill running. There's nobody in the world more designed for it than Lucy.
and climbing on a bike.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, wow. All right, listen, let's jump over to Coach's Couch, and we had a question on Twitter from Mike B.
Yep, so Mike says, what's the best post-race recovery plan to get the legs back to normal after an Ironman? Oh, love it. Oh, drown yourself in cold beer. It'll help. It soothes.
The $1 million question. Do you know what, Hal? Cold beer is probably not a bad part of the plan, to be fair.
You know?
I think that the thing you've got to remember, Mike, is, and it really is a case of everybody is really completely different. I've got athletes who bounce back after 3 or 4 days and want to get back into training the next weekend. And there are some people who race and don't really want to do anything for 2 or 3 weeks afterwards. And I think you've really got to listen to your body, and you've got to, if you go out for a run and all of a sudden people talk about a switch flipping and they just can't be bothered and they end up walking home. And I think if that happens to you, listen to your body and just go for a walk home, basically. Take it super easy, because the chances are you have done quite a lot of muscle damage to your thighs especially. So in order of importance, I would say have a good couple of days of complete rest, put your feet up and take the Helen Murray inspired beer bath. So
I've never done that, by the way.
Plenty of cold water with beer in a bottle heading towards your lips as you're doing that for a few days.
Done that bit.
Then a bit of easy swimming. I think swimming's like a free massage, and that can really help just, promote a bit of blood flow and flush those muscles out from the waste products. That'll help getting you started. Really easy bike ride, so small ring, super easy spin around. That again is going to help flush out some of those waste products and help the muscle start to regenerate. And just take care of your diet during that week. So if you are a milk drinker, then I think loads of sort of protein-y smoothies and milk drinks and things that have got loads of protein in, that's going to help promote the recovery of your muscles as well. And then towards the end of that week, well, think about venturing out for a short run. And if your body's up to it, great, nice slow jog. And if it's not, don't worry about it and come back to it another week later. But really, there is no template for this because everybody recovers in a different way. And what I say to the guys I coach is, I'm going to put like a 2-week plan on your Training Peaks account, but it's like a buffet. Like, pick and choose what you want. If you fancy something, do it. If you don't fancy it that day, don't do it. If you want to stop early, stop early. And really, I think 2 weeks is the sweet spot of knowing whether you want to get back into doing some training or whether you want to take a bit of a break and feet up and relax and really, because a lot of people these days, Hells, they base their whole season around building up to an Ironman, both in terms of physically and mentally, and people need a break from that for a little while. There are some people who want to do 2 or 3 or 4 Ironmans in a season. Obviously that advice isn't going to apply to them quite so much, but for most people, I think a good couple of weeks of just chilling out and just exercising for fun and just try not to be quite so sore. And maybe week 2, think about a very gentle massage. I'd certainly be extremely careful with the massage in the week after the race because you're going to be sore regardless. So whatever you can do to promote that recovery, go with that.
Rob, I'm going to tell you what, I always look forward to the mental side of it being done and dusted and actually having a bit of a break from that side of things because it does impact on everything. So yeah, I always look forward to that. I look forward to definitely the cold beer at the finish line and being able to sort of celebrate. Actually, I think the first one I did, I think I managed a sip. But anyway, being able to celebrate the achievement of it all. The following day, just being able to eat pretty much anything you want. That's always quite nice. And then, yeah, the first time that you go in the pool, I remember once or twice, I couldn't push off. It hurt so much. It really, really hurt. So, yeah. Rob, at this moment, I'm going to have to multitask. And okay. I have to answer the door.
No problem. You go do that. Let's see who's at the door. Maybe it'll be delivery.
No, the person at the door is coming for the kit bag, and they're now laughing at me because they're probably thinking, "What the heck?" So the piece of kit, Rob, that I took from the top to the bottom of Italy is being lent to a fellow friend, and he's looking at it thinking, "What the heck? How do I fit this? How do I fit this much stuff in?" So that's who's at the door. This is exciting on the podcast, Rob.
Live podcasting, handing over bags to a friend. I love it, Hells. I'll tell you what, this is probably the perfect spot to say what we'll do is we will head on over to our interview of the week with Jasmijn Muller.
Jasmijn Muller, hello, and welcome to the Oxygenaddict Triathlon Podcast. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Well, I read about you and heard a little bit about you, and I think our listeners they'll think back and they'll go, "Oh yeah, I remember that," because some people will obviously have heard of you from your Zwift antics.
Yes. In February this year, that kind of went viral. We didn't really expect the impact that would have. But yeah, people from all over the world got in touch and really clocked on to the fact that there was a girl just sitting in her own bedroom, pedaling for days, trying to break a record that was held by a man.
So what exactly did that record involve?
It was an indoor record, but I think before I started, Chris Hopkinson had held the record, and he set it at something like 1,600 kilometers in 60 hours or something he had done indoor on his turbo bike. But you're cycling in Zwift, which is this fantastic virtual reality world, and you're riding through aquariums and all sorts of weird and wonderful structures, but with people all around the world. That's the beautiful thing about it. So you're his avatar and you're able to ride with other people, but you sit in your own bedroom. And when I saw him do that in December last year, I thought, well, that's pretty cool. I like long challenges. That's an interesting one. Can't I have a go? And the main reason why I wanted to have a go is because I'm preparing for a longer record attempt on the road. And I wanted just to see how my body would react to, well, sitting on the saddle for that long, but also issues like sleep deprivation, nutrition. And I thought if I do that in an indoor environment, it's sort of a safe setting. And then after that, I can take that learning and try it out on the road. And so that's all how it all came about. And in the end, I broke his record. I pedaled for total of 62 hours, covered 1,828 kilometers in that period, but obviously went nowhere, just stuck in my own bedroom.
And there are so many questions that I want to ask on some of the things you have just mentioned, but had you used Zwift much prior to the record? Was it something almost like a different training tool for you?
The answer is no. I really went from a complete Zwift newbie to
really
indoor record. I only started using Zwift in preparation for this record attempt, so it must have been like 2 weeks before or so.
To get a few friends.
Well, I didn't have a smart turbo trainer to start with, so that was the first thing. I had to score one. And I was very lucky to get a Wahoo kicker to do it all on. So I needed 2 weeks to get to grips with, how it all worked and the ins and outs of Zwift. And I then was really keen to work myself through the challenges to make sure I got the fastest bikes and wheels and realized, no, that's not going to happen because it takes many, many hours. I just need to get on with it and I'll gain those fast wheels and bikes as I do the challenge. And I was pleasantly surprised. I really had underestimated the power of Zwift, how addictive it is because of all the little challenges built into it and all the little rewards that you're given. But B, just the fact that, the time zones. I was riding with people that I had met in California, for example. They were riding along with me, people from the Netherlands. My sister in Dubai she doesn't even ride in Zwift, but she just locked in and was standing by the side of the road. And each time I came past from that point, she was saying hello. And that vibe is just fantastic. You don't get that normally when you're training on your turbo inside. It's pretty solitary and pretty boring.
Well, many of us will have turbos, and probably for most people, I don't know, an hour you can deal with. An hour and a half, you're sort of thinking, I'm getting a bit bored by now. If you do a 3-4 hour session on the turbo, you start to question your sanity. So I cannot imagine doing 62 hours on a static bike indoors. So how did you get through that?
Well, I think it's perfectly right to question my sanity. I'm obviously pretty mad to even consider doing this. I think what has helped me in a way, and at the time it was really difficult, but last summer I had deep vein thrombosis, and because of that I had to take blood thinners, and the risk that exists then is if you do go out on the road and if you do happen to fall and you bleed badly, you can't quite die from it, but still you would lose a lot of blood and it would do a lot of damage to your muscles, etc. So I chose for that 3-month period whilst I was on the blood thinners for the DVT, I chose to just train indoors only. So for that whole summer I did very long turbo sessions up to like 6 hours. And whilst it's mentally quite difficult, I think it also it prepared me for some of the challenges that I've done this year, and it helped me tap into that sort of mental toughness that you need for the longer endurance challenges. During the Zwift record attempt, actually, It was easy because there was a lot of distraction. So you're constantly looking at the software and the sort of the virtual world. There is conversations with the other cyclists who are using Zwift at the same time. So there's distraction. I had music on. I had my crew here with me. So there were always two people keeping an eye on me, and they were playing all sorts of jokes on me just to keep me going. They're dressing up and doing weird, wonderful things. Actually, the time went by pretty quickly, and the only area that really, really suffered from it was my bum.
Right, so we're going to get onto the bum. Did you change shorts midway through? Do you use chamois cream? How does one prepare one's bottom for 62 hours in the saddle?
Yeah, I did everything that I thought I could do to try to prevent saddle sores, and I still got it badly. So what I did is, I used chamois cream and I used my favorite shorts, and every 6 hours I stopped to change shorts and have a quick shower and look after my hygiene. But the problem with cycling indoors, everything gets so wet. We had all the windows open, my crew, they were wearing like hats and jumpers and everything. They were freezing cold, but I was just boiling. I had two fans blowing at me, including one pretty industrial fan, and it was still just dripping with sweat and everything. It's impossible to keep things dry. And I had my favorite saddle, you name it. But then after I think it was about 24 hours into the record attempt, I started getting the first sign of a saddle sore. Mm-hmm. So you try to, put more chamois cream on, etc. But unfortunately, that saddle sore got infected, and it was a kind of infection that makes like a hole in the skin. Oh. I don't know, there's a difficult Latin word for this one, but the issue is then that all the additional sweat, all the additional chamois cream, everything, the dirt just goes down that hole and it becomes even more infected. Oh. So by the end, I had an infection that was not just in my groin, but it's gone all the way into sort of the upper end of my upper leg. About 10 centimeters was red and thick and swollen. And I just couldn't sit on the saddle anymore, and that's why I stopped in the end. My legs were still all right. My head was still in it, but I had achieved all my goals, and the sores were that bad. I thought, you know what, this is it.
Wow.
That's me.
How did you fuel your Zwift attempt, and is it different to how you fueled your 24-hour national time trial championship? I want to say winning race. Yeah,
it is different. We tried to simulate as much as possible during the Zwift record attempt to make me eat the same things that I would eat on the road, things that would be easy to hand up in a bottle from the side of the road. But after a while, just because you're in your own bedroom and because you can, it is nice to also eat other things. So I started with a lot of liquid things, but then as time went on, for example, I had a boiled egg at some point, which I really enjoy. I had slices of yellow bell pepper, which is really nice and refreshing, and we can still do all of that on the road, attaching it to the bottle, but at home it was kind of, displayed beautifully, like a little tray with all these wonderful little snacks that I could choose from, and pieces of cheese and all the things that I enjoy eating. But the core of it for me was a lot of electrolytes, because I've got very, very high sweat rate and also lose a lot of sodium. So we really had to look after my electrolytes. We started with some energy mix, just a sort of sports energy mix. But actually I find that after a couple of hours, that makes me quite sick. It doesn't work very well for me. Mm-hmm. And what does work really well is ambrosia rice pudding, whizzed in the kitchen machine, then diluted with water, and actually half I mixed that ambrosia rice pudding with fresabin, which is like it's a very calorific drink that they normally give to people who who are either really, really ill or who are anorexic and refuse to eat, and it has a very pleasant taste, and it gives you not only all the calories that you need, but also it's got a lot of vitamins and so in it. And a mix of ambrosia rice pudding and the fresabin diluted with water is what gets me through most of it.
Okay, and do you use that on the road as well?
Yeah, and we use that on the road as well. So probably every 3 or 4 hours I would have a bottle of that. And for me, it's also, I didn't grow up in the UK. I never heard of ambrosia rice pudding before. So the first time I ever ate it was at a 12-hour time trial that I did back in 2013. I did it unsupported, just on my road bike with some clip-ons, and the people who organised that event, they gave me some of it, and I stopped and just spooned it, and I was like, wow, this is magic. This is wonderful. And I've got, ever since, I've got such good memories of that and associated with my time trialing. So whenever I do a race, that's what I want, but I've just found a more easy way to eat it on the go rather than having to stop and spoon it.
So and that is by whizzing it up and adding a bit of...
whizzing it up, yeah. And then, we also did things like pumpkin soup, for example. That was really nice. Bananas always work, but really trying to steer away from gels and bars and energy mixes, which do work well for me for shorter races, but anything beyond 100 mile, it just becomes all too much sweetness and affects my stomach.
That's really interesting. And then what about sleep? So for Zwift, if you were 62 hours in the saddle, did you manage to get a little bit of sleep during that time?
Yeah, the thing with sleep is you can't plan it. You can't say, after 24 hours I'm going to have a 20-minute sleep or so. You've got to wait until your body is sufficiently tired to need it. But you then also need to manage your caffeine or intake. And I think for the Zwift attempt, we went probably about 34 hours in. And then I had my first power nap of 25 minutes, and that worked really well. So just before I went into the power nap, I had some protein to drink, and I had a caffeine tablet actually before I went into that sleep. And then as the crew woke me up 25 minutes later, I felt fairly refreshed and ready to go.
Now, I have heard about that before, that taking caffeine before a short power nap, it really helps.
Yeah, it does. As long as it's a short power nap. If you're planning on taking a longer sleep, it's just gonna bugger it up. You can't do it that way. And also, I avoid taking caffeine throughout my races. I only take it during the times of the day when I know that I get drowsy. So I don't use it to stay sharp or focused. I know from my own body that between sort of 2 and 4 at night, actually the darkest period of the night, that's when I struggle with sleep. And then I've got another window, tends to be between 6 and 7 in the morning, and a little bit, it varies depending on the time of the year. But just as it starts to get warmer again in the morning, that's another period where I get a bit drowsy. So for those 2 time frames, that's where I use caffeine, and the rest of the time I don't. And then it really works well. And also I try not to use caffeine gels, but instead I use the caffeine tablets, so it doesn't affect your stomach as much.
You said that you went for 34 hours and then you had a power nap. Were you going delirious at, I don't know, hour 28, 29?
I don't think so. My crew may say so, but no, I don't think I did. We then went through to, I can't remember the exact cutoffs anymore, but we went through, through another cycle and then had another 25-minute power nap. On that occasion, it wasn't enough. I woke up and felt really groggy, so I had another 10 minutes sort of stuck onto that and then felt a bit better. But if you go back to Twitter, you will see pictures of me kind of sitting on the bicycle with my eyes closed, leaning with one arm on each side on the shoulders of my crew, just pedaling with my eyes closed because I was, not woken up at all. And my husband telling me, pedal to the beat of the music, and then you get back into it again, which was fantastic. It worked, but obviously that won't work on the road.
No, I was going to say
with my eyes closed.
No, it might not be too sensible. That is a really difficult part, I guess, that you've got to factor in when you're going for the 24-hour attempts and the Le Jog attempt. Is that middle of the night and the sleep, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, it's I've just come back from doing London Edinburgh London, which is not a race. It's an Audax. It's an uncompetitive event, but that event runs over about 1,400 kilometers. It's got 11,000 meters of elevation in it. It's actually very, very similar in terms of elevation and length to my length and John O'Groats challenge. And I did that over 3 days, and that allowed me again to experiment with sleep deprivation, but now being out on the road. And what was interesting there is that, early on, a 25-minute power nap is sufficient and a little bit of caffeine works. But then as time goes on, actually, I noticed that I need to lengthen the duration of my sleep. So my second sleep was 90 minutes, and that was beautiful. After that, I woke up and felt fully refreshed. And then that was it. That got me all the way through to the end. I didn't need another sleep. And on the third night, I was really disappointed because people have always told me, hallucinations, that will come from sort of night 3 onwards, And I was actively waiting for it to happen. And nothing happened. I didn't have any hallucinations. I think somehow, I don't know, my mind must be too logical, because there were a few times where I thought, there could be some people moving along the road or so. And then I thought, no way, that's just trees. And then I thought something else, and it's like, no way, it's just a sign. And so each time my brain was telling me to stop fooling. And but I had anticipations of these weird and wonderful hallucinations that some other people talk about. And I hope it will still happen during my record attempt.
But hopefully you're going to have a crew on at hand as well. So then if you are like really, really losing it, because it can be, it can be dangerous, can't it? The very, very long distance stuff and not taking those breaks. Yeah,
for the record attempt, we will use radios. There'll be licensed radios as well, so they've got a range of about 6 or 7 miles on them. And I don't want to use the radios just to chat. Part of why I want to do these long challenges is that I want to motivate myself and get through the bad bits. But in terms of safety, I do want them to check during the night, even if it's just briefly every half an hour, and say, Chaz, you're still awake, are you okay? And all I need to snap back at them and say yes, But we need to keep that line of communication going, because for the whole of the attempt, I'll be on busy A roads, and you cannot afford to fall asleep on your bike on those. That's too dangerous. And for some parts of it, they may be able to do a direct follow if the traffic is quiet. But other parts, they won't be able to be directly behind me, so they can't see me actually. So the radios are really, really key. And then it also we have to play it by ear. So we'll probably stick to the same pattern, starting with 25-minute power nap and then maybe lengthening it a little bit. The schedule that I'm working towards, the current record, it's 52 hours, 45 minutes and 11 seconds. And that's held by Lynn Biddulph, who set it in 2002. And if you work that out over the length of the challenge, which is about 842 miles, it works out at about just under 16 mile an hour average. But that includes everything, every stop you make, for traffic lights, for sleeping, for pee stops, whatever.
Wow. So when you're actually going along and you're having, a good, let's say a very good spell for a few hours, I guess you'd be going at more like 20 miles an hour or something?
Yeah, I'll be cycling between 18 and 20 mile an hour most of the time, to allow for stops and to allow for periods where, when you go uphill in Cornwall or over Shap or in Scotland, I can't power up the hills quite at that speed.
Disappointing.
Yeah, I'm not that kind of person. I'm reasonably muscular, and I've got some additional fat to help me through it. I'm not a climber, so I've allowed for slower speeds at times, but the average moving speed should be at a minimum of 17.5 mile an hour. Yeah.
What does an average training week look like? Because obviously you've done the 24-hour nationals, you've done the Zwift record. It's sort of ticking mental boxes as well. But a typical week for you as you're gearing up, how does it pan out?
My training weeks are, to some extent, really determined by my work. I work as a management consultant. I work long hours. I work deadlines, and the work is what pays for all these bikes and things. That always comes first. So quite often my training tends to be concentrated all in the weekend. I tend to cram in longer rides then, and during the week I just fit in shorter turbo sessions as and when I can. Now that I'm working from home since April, that life has really improved. I can fit my training around my work much better. I've suddenly gained like 3 hours in the day, which is fantastic. But I can't really describe a typical week. The week I've just had, I've done the 24-hour nationals, then did nothing at all during the week, just one ride to kind of stretch my legs, and then did London, Edinburgh, London, which was 63 or 64 hours on the bike. So it's that's not very typical at all. They're big, long challenges. But during the build-up, when I do my turbo sessions, they tend to be more at the sort of top end of things, just still working on interval sessions that challenge me. And then I see some scary numbers there, and I'm trying to do things like sprint intervals and things, because you do still need to be sharp and you need to get over the hills. And if you only train in, say, zone 2 or endurance, then that's all your body wants to do. You still need to challenge it out of that. But at the same time, I know if I did a 10-mile time trial now, I would be really rubbish. You do get what you train for to some extent. And although I did set a 20-minute power PB the other day on my turbo, I was quite surprised at that. But
and what
would
sure. your 20-minute power PB be?
I think, what did we see? Something around 270 or something. Watts. So I'm not too
shabby at all.
Too shabby, exactly. Not for someone who specialises at the really, really, really long events.
How did you find out that you were any good at riding a bike for a very long time and a very long way? Because it's not something that you wake up one morning and think, I'm just going to get on my bike and see what I can do.
No. I think I found out when I joined a cycling club. So I grew up in the Netherlands and always rode my bike just for a bit of fun, just to get to school. And I grew up doing ballet, so all I did use the bike for is to get to ballet school and music school and so to see friends. But I never really did cycling as a sport. And then it wasn't until my early 30s that I started cycling just to work, and did a charity ride and then did some sportives. And then actually found that a bit boring. I wanted to ride with others, so I joined the local cycling club back in 2011, I think it was. And then I felt that when I did the shorter club rides, the first hour or two, it was always really difficult. I mostly rode with the guys, and they were just ripping my legs off, and I just about managed to hang on to their wheel. But then as with the same group of people, as we did longer rides, suddenly towards the end of the ride, suddenly the roles were reversed. Like I seemed to find my legs and they seemed to struggle more as time went on. And I think that then made me think, maybe it is this kind of endurance cycling that somehow I have a talent for. And then I started exploring that. I mean, that was in 2013. I did my first 12-hour time trial, and shortly after that I did a 24-hour race at Le Mans on the racing circuit there. And going into that, I thought, okay, the main goal is to complete the race, just see if I can actually do it. And I wanted to raise money for a charity for cancer research. And then actually I came away from that, having done all of that, but also winning the women's event and coming 10th in the men's race. And I was like, wow, there really is something here. And that was despite sitting down for 2 hours, because the organisers already told me, look, you've won, the next woman can't catch you anymore. So if you want to have a break, go for it. And in my inexperience, I said, yeah, why not? So I sat down and had a bit to eat and relaxed. And then, of course, your legs seize up and you still need to do that final lap just to get over the line. And it was horrible. And since then, it's kind of became a little bit of a slippery slope, just experimenting with how far you can take this.
And you were third overall, males and females, at this year's 24-hour nationals, weren't you?
I was, yeah. So it's the 24-hour National Time Trialing Championships. I won the women's race, but I also came third overall. And that's a historic first that never, ever happened before. And I even went into all the archives from cycling time trials to see, all the other previous championship results. And that really confirmed that it was unique. Now, I think there are a number of reasons for this. One is the weather. We had horrible weather. It rained so much. So there were quite a lot of men who could have beaten me, but they withdrew from the race. Now, some of that was because they were too cold and suffered from hypothermia, and others just had bad luck with their equipment. Cranks falling off and all sorts of things. But still, you can't say it was only because of the weather. You still got to take credit for what you've done. And that was pretty special.
Totally. And you did, what was the distance? It was, 456 miles? Yes,
I did the provisional results. The official results are still not confirmed because they have to check it over and over again. But provisional result was 456.5 miles, whereas the sort of all-time competition record is 461.5 miles. So that's really what I was aiming for. And when you go into an event like that, I always think just aim for the sky and then adjust according to how you're feeling in the conditions. So I was really gunning it, and for a long time it looked like I could end up with something like 470, 480 miles.
Wow.
And I still think I'm capable of that. The only thing is I need to probably start a little bit less enthusiastically. I think as always, I start too fast because it all feels so easy in the beginning.
Oh, don't we know that feeling?
And, my coach keeps hammering it into me that I have to become more disciplined, but I'm really bad for that. And I thought I was well behaved because it took me like 3.5 hours to catch my Minuteman. I thought I was doing all right, but, he obviously was even less disciplined than I was. And I think also, maybe if the weather conditions would have been better, then there's scope for improvement as well.
This is very exciting. How do you prepare mentally for such long challenges, and also those really dark moments which you're inevitably going to get being on your bike for so long?
Yeah, I'm blessed to work with a sports psychologist, Josephine Perry, who's helping me prepare for that big challenge for Lens and John Groats. But as part of that, we also break it down and look at what other challenges are on my path, in the build-up. And the National 24 we really flagged up as that's, other than Lens and John Groats, that's the one and only race this year that I really wanted to do well at. All the other races are part of my training, and I don't really care so much about the result. But the 24 had has a special place in my heart, because that had been my main goal for last year, and then unfortunately the DVT meant that I couldn't do it. So I'd been dreaming of participating in this race for a long time. And some of the things that she does with me is just trying to break the goals down and look at what it requires to do well, but also identify those areas where I think I'm weak at and improve on those. Now, a lot of that actually has to do with logistics, and then just being able to take all the worries that you may have away. And if you know that for all those what-if scenarios, you've got an answer, and then at some point you need to accept that whatever else happens, it's just, it's just beyond you. You just need to let it happen. So working with her has helped me a lot. And then I think also just personally, I think I'm quite strong-minded and are able to motivate myself well throughout the bad times, because certainly in 24 hours it's not all fun. There's some bits where you think, why the hell am I here, do I still want to keep going? But I find that as long as you've got like a collection of happy memories to tap into, that when those bad moments happen, I use one of those to kind of drag me out of it again. And it's really empowering and really helps with sort of self-development if you can do that. And a few hours later, you're completely enjoying yourself again and everything's going well. And you're like, hey, I managed to get through that. And it's just within a 24-hour race, but you can then apply that to the rest of your life when you get through some bad patches.
Sounds very familiar to the marathon section of an Ironman. Very, very familiar. Now,
there it's even worse, because the moment you stop running, then it's really hard to get going again. Whereas on a bike, you can just freewheel for a bit.
We're going to wrap up shortly, but talk to me about eggs, because you've got a nice little saying about eggs. Yeah,
I do. I have a mantra that I use for my challenges and also for my record attempt, which is be the egg. And at first you wonder, why do you want to be the egg? But it comes from a saying that the same boiling water that softens the potato hardens the egg, and it's what you're made of, not the circumstances. And that's that mantra and that saying is really what helps with, for example, races like the 24-hour time trial to get through it. It doesn't matter what happens around you. It doesn't matter what the weather is like, what the traffic's like, what other people are doing, all of that. Nothing matters. It's about what you're made of and what your goals are. And I've got all my crew wearing those caps with the little be the egg mantra on it. So when I get through a low spot during my record attempt, I just need to look at their caps and remind myself that I'm strong and that I can do this.
Love it. Jasmijn, you've been a complete star. I've really, really enjoyed chatting, so thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. It was really good fun talking to you too.
Wowzers, hells. I can't quite get over that, to be perfectly honest.
It's just, I can't really, I just cannot imagine being on, I don't know, not just being on a bike for that long, but all the sleep deprivation and not sleeping, or maybe sleeping for sort of 20 minutes in such a long period of time. And then the bits that I think, God, it can't be, like sometimes I think, that can't be great for you. But then, other people have done it in the past. Linny Biddulph, who's trying to whose record she's trying to break. You know, she's had that record for quite a while, and you know, she's nailed the long distance, the world of long distance cycling. So yeah, I think it definitely takes a special person with an incredible mental capacity to do something like that. And I know weather-wise, you know, the 1st of September is the first possible date that she can go and do it. And then the last possible start date is the 3rd week of September. So they still haven't quite confirmed exactly within that window when they're going to do it, because they will be needing to wait for some, dare we say it, Rob, favourable weather. Favourable
weather, yeah, good luck with that. I think the entire country is waiting for some favourable weather to go to the beach and have an ice cream more than anything.
Oh, yeah. But it's really interesting, isn't it, hearing how you fuel it and things, and yeah.
The thing that got me was I stopped because of my saddle sores.
Oh.
How bad do they have to be to stop someone who's been going for 2.5 days? I don't even want to think about it.
No, honestly. Oh yeah, I should have put a warning out, shouldn't I, before the interview, that if people were eating their breakfast, maybe just...
Yeah. Sorry about that, everyone. There you go. Anyway, I like to look at it like this. The next time you go out and you've been out for 3 hours and your shoulders get a bit tight, you'll kind of think of Jasmine and think, okay, what would Jasmine do? Keep on pedaling.
Yep, and I love the phrase, Rob, about the eggs at the end. Be the egg. So we're all going to be the egg.
All going to be the egg.
Yeah. We are all going to be the egg. So massive good luck to Jasmine. And Robert, I forgot when we were talking about Dublin earlier. Oh, by the way, our friend, he's got the saddlebag. It's all good now. But when we were talking about Dublin earlier, you know, last week when we did Coach's Couch, and then at the end I said, oh, Rob, we've had a question from DJC asking about the walk run and whether he should do walk run for Dublin or the Joe Friel
Yes, I do
methodology.
Remember, yeah.
Yeah, so DJC got back in touch. He says, thanks for the advice. I did the run walk at Dublin 70.3, ended up averaging 4-minute 35k pace for the last 11k. Thank you.
I'll take that. 45-minute 10k pace. Thank you very much. That's a really solid, strong end to the run, isn't it?
Exactly. And then Charlie Pennington, we mentioned him last week when we also had you asked me that question, Rob, to really put me on my toes, about, you know, do you go past a pack or do you drop back?
What do you do tactics-wise? Yeah.
Yeah. So Charlie said, I've just heard the dilemma. I had similar in Hamburg. I decided to pass 6 guys rather than drop in, but they caught me. They caught me later. I decided to sit back and not waste more energy. Worked out okay, but could have been a bad move. And then he says it's worth saying that they were riding legally. They just kept surging rather than constant effort. I was faster uphill, but they'd catch me on flats.
It's a difficult one, especially in a situation like Charlie's in where they're riding legally. That's probably even harder to figure through in your head, isn't it? But when he had the situation like Martin was in, where there's just a big group of 12 guys drafting blatantly, interesting to know it affects people from the very sort of the middle of the age group
pointy
racing
end,
all the way through to the pointy end, even when people are actually riding legally. The decision of whether to pass or sit legally in the group is something that massively affects your race, isn't it?
There we go. Excellent.
Cool. Well, I think that brings us to the end of this week's show. Thank you very much to our sponsors, precisionhydration.com. Don't forget you can get yourself 15% off with the code Oxygenaddict15 at their website. Thank you very much for joining in. My name has been Coach Rob Wilby.
I'm Helen Murray.
And you've been listening to the Oxygenaddict Triathlon Podcast. Until next week, have a great training and racing week, and we'll speak to you next week. See ya!